That's your Gap hoodie, is that right? That's you. Who are you shooting at?
No.
All right, now back it up again.
When everybody promoting the beef against other rappers, they love it.
Straight Drop only got $800 for that hit. Can you imagine killing somebody and your reward is a PlayStation and maybe a game or two?
You don't know if that's true or not.
It's a messed up situation. It's a messed up situation.
Let's get into it, because this is the murder that shook the streets and the beef that lit the whole thing on fire. The streets of Memphis, Tennessee don't play about anything, especially when it comes to keeping things solid. But even in a city that's seen all types of chaos, nothing hit harder than what went down on that November day in 2021. This wasn't just some small drama blowing out of control. This was the straight-up assassination of one of the realest to ever touch a mic, Young Dolph. You're talking about a hit so bold, it had the whole hood whispering, the whole city hurting, and the entire hip-hop world staring at the headlines like, how did it get this far? It felt like the atmosphere in Memphis cracked open that day. On November 17, 2021, 36-year-old rapper Adolph Robert Thornton Jr., known to the world as Young Dolph, was gunned down in broad daylight at Makita's homemade butter cookies. This was a spot he always pulled up to for his favorite treats, a place he showed love to. This wasn't late-night danger. This wasn't an alley pull-up. This was noon energy out in the open with zero fear about who might see or what would happen next. The disrespect behind that kind of move hit the city like a shockwave. Young Dolph wasn't just another artist trying to climb out the mud. He was a certified Memphis legend, a self-made millionaire who built paper route empire from scratch without ever bowing to anybody. People looked at him like living proof that a man could come from nothing, stay independent, and still win big in the game. And when the shooters fired 22 rounds, it wasn't just violence, it was a message. Loud, ugly, and intentional. 22 shots, fam. That's not just murder, that's pure overkill. It showed whoever planned this didn't just want him gone. They wanted the whole city to feel it. Memphis hasn't been the same since, and the story is only getting darker as more details drop. That wasn't just sending a message, that was making an example out of somebody in the loudest way possible. The whole hit got caught on the surveillance cameras clear as day. Two dudes in ski masks pulling up in a white Mercedes, hopping out with the blinkies and letting shots fly while Young Dolph was literally just trying to grab some cookies. The way they moved, the way they emptied those clips and then dipped off like it was a regular Tuesday had the whole city frozen in disbelief. Memphis woke up that day asking who would do something this cold and why anyone would move this bold out in the open. The Memphis Police Department wasn't playing at all. This wasn't something they could ignore because the whole city was demanding answers. Within months, authorities rounded up 4 suspects and hit each one with serious charges. They came for Justin Straight Drop Johnson and Cornelius Smith, the two allegedly holding the weapons that took Dolph's life. Then came Hernandez Govan, the man the feds pointed to as the so-called mastermind who allegedly lined up the whole operation. And then Jamarcus Johnson, Justin's half-brother, who prosecutors say helped the shooters get away and collect the money for the hit. But anybody who understands the streets knew one thing instantly. These 4 weren't the full story. There was no way this kind of operation went down without someone bigger pulling strings in the background. Somebody wanted Young Dolph gone, and the real question was, who put the battery in these dudes' backs to make this happen? The whispers got louder, the theories got crazier, and the streets knew the answer was buried deep inside one of the nastiest rap beefs Memphis ever saw. To understand how Dolph ended up catching those bullets, you gotta rewind the clock and look at the deadly rivalry between Young Dolph and another Memphis heavyweight, Yo Gotti. And this beef wasn't online nonsense or cute subliminals. No, this beef was deep, personal, and soaked in real-life smoke. Crews were involved, labels were involved, egos were involved, and over the years, it added up to real street violence with real consequences. This wasn't petty back and forth. This was the kind of tension where people on both sides were always ready to slide if things got too hot. The kind of energy where saying both their names in the same sentence made the room shift. Memphis knew for years there was something heavy behind the scenes, and every time Dolph and Gotti's camps crossed paths, things got tense instantly. The root of the whole situation goes back to around 2014, when Young Dolph was grinding independently and starting to blow up. Back then, Yo Gotti, real name Mario Mims, was already established as the king of Memphis with his CMG label. According to people close to the situation, Gotti allegedly tried to sign Dolph to CMG. On paper, it looked like a clean business move, an OG bringing a rising star into the fold to build up the city together. But Dolph wasn't with any of that. He had his own vision and his own empire, paper route empire, and he wasn't about to be another artist on someone's roster taking orders or waiting for permission to move. Dolph turned down the offer, stood on his independence, and made it clear he wanted to run his own lane, his own way. That moment planted a seed, and Memphis still talks about the fallout that came right after. Young Dolph wanted to be his own boss, control his own masters, and stack his money his own way. Real boss-level energy that a lot of people respected instantly. But that independent mindset rubs some folks the wrong way, especially in a city where power, ego, and influence mean everything. And from what Dolph said publicly, Yo Gotti definitely didn't take the rejection lightly. According to Dolph, the switch-up was crazy. He said dude went from showing him major love to acting like an enemy after the deal fell through. Dolph even tweeted back in 2016, "Bra went from being my Nabo 1 fan and wanting to sign me to being my biggest hater." That one tweet told the whole story. Dolph felt like someone who used to respect him suddenly flipped once he realized Dolph wasn't gonna fall in line. And in the streets, when someone switches up on you out of ego or business pride, situations can turn dangerous fast.
The whole world never say that when they egging on the beat. When everybody put on a song, everybody egging out, nobody don't be saying that. We feel like that right now.
The tension didn't stay hidden for long. Both artists started throwing shots in their music, and the energy escalated quickly. In 2016, Young Dolph dropped King of Memphis, a direct challenge to Yo Gotti's long-held title and reputation. That move alone was bold, but what came next took the beef to a whole new level. In 2017, Dolph released Play with Yo B.I., a track aimed straight at Gotti's neck, and he didn't hold back a single punch. The song was messy, personal, and disrespectful in a way that street culture doesn't shrug off. Dolph was claiming he had been with the mother of Gotti's child. He put a Yo Gotti lookalike in the music video getting clowned, and the cover art even showed missed calls from Yo Gotti baby Moma. That kind of disrespect isn't just rap gamesmanship. It's the kind of violation that makes real street figures react way beyond music. When you're dealing with people who have real crews behind them and access to people ready to move, that level of personal disrespect can flip from rap beef to street beef in a heartbeat. In a city like Memphis, where gang culture, loyalty, and reputation run deep, those kinds of shots don't just stay on YouTube or Spotify, they turn into real-life problems. Once the disrespect went public, the beef became something that could spill into the streets at any moment. When you challenge someone's reputation in a city where your name is everything, somebody eventually decides to step in the street way. And that's exactly what happened. Not just once, but multiple times. The first major situation exploded in February 2017 during CIAA tournament weekend in Charlotte, North Carolina. On February 25th, Young Dolph's bulletproof SUV was hit with over 100 shots in what was clearly a planned attack. That wasn't a random moment or stray drama. That was a coordinated attempt designed to make sure Dolph never made it back home. The wild part is, Dolph survived without a scratch. His truck really lived up to its name. And that moment made the whole beef shift again. Because surviving something like that just added more tension, more speculation, and more danger surrounding the feud. This is where the story officially left music beef behind and stepped into real war territory. And Memphis knew things would never be the same. Somebody wanted Young Dolph gone so badly they unloaded 100 rounds into his truck like they were trying to erase him from the map. The only reason he walked away from that attack was pure luck, mixed with smart planning, because Dolph had the sense to get that SUV fully bulletproofed. Without that, the story would have ended right there, and Memphis knows it. But the violence didn't slow down at all. Just 7 months later, in September 2017, Young Dolph got shot multiple times outside the Loews Hollywood Hotel in Los Angeles. And this time, the situation was way more serious than before. He ended up in critical condition, fighting for his life, and the whole industry was holding its breath. It was one of those moments where everyone realized the beef around him wasn't just music, it was turning into something deadly for real. At first, Yo Gotti's name popped up in the early reports because he was staying at the same hotel, and the media ran wild with it. But the LAPD quickly shut that down and confirmed he wasn't a suspect. Instead, one of Gotti's guys, Corey McClendon, ended up getting arrested for attempted murder. But just like previous situations, he beat the case and walked out clean. The streets noticed that pattern instantly. Fast forward, and the third time really became the charm for the truth to finally crack open. Because when Justin Straight Drop Johnson's trial officially began in September 2024, almost 3 years after Young Dolph was killed, every street-connected person in Memphis had their eyes glued to that courtroom.
Well, since our last interview, Justin Johnson, aka Straight Drop, got sentenced to life in prison for the murder of Young Dolph. And in fact, I think they gave him another 50 years.
This wasn't some random neighborhood case where one dude got caught in drama. This was a murder trial that had the potential to expose people with real influence in the Memphis rap scene. Johnson was staring down charges of first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and being a felon with a weapon. Those charges aren't light. If convicted, he would basically be looking at spending the rest of his life behind bars with no chance of walking free again. The courtroom energy was heavy because everyone knew the stakes were through the roof. The prosecution, led by Shelby County Assistant District Attorney Paul Hagerman, came in loaded with evidence. They had the surveillance footage showing the two masked shooters hopping out of that white Mercedes and letting the shots off while Dolph was inside Makita's buying cookies. They had the phone records showing Johnson and the other defendants in the area right when everything went down. They had digital breadcrumbs, movements, towers, timestamps, everything lined up to show these men weren't far from the scene. And the deeper the evidence went, the more people in Memphis started whispering that this trial wasn't just about the bullets in the shop. It was about whether this whole setup could end up dragging bigger names into the light. The courtroom wasn't just a legal battle, it was a powder keg, and everyone watching felt the tension explode every single day of testimony. They even had the ballistics locked in, matching the guns used in the murder straight back to the suspects. But the evidence that truly crushed Justin Straight Drop Johnson wasn't the shells or the footage. It was the moment his own co-defendant Cornelius Smith decided to flip. That move hit the courtroom like a bomb, because when someone from your own circle starts talking, everything gets dangerous fast. Cornelius Smith's testimony wasn't soft at all, it was explosive. The second he sat down and opened his mouth, the entire vibe in the courtroom shifted. Smith didn't just admit to being involved in the shooting that took Young Dolph's life, he started dropping names, connecting dots, and suggesting the hit wasn't some small-time street drama. He made it sound like there were people with way more power moving behind the scenes. According to Smith's sworn testimony, this murder wasn't random, wasn't emotional, and wasn't just two dudes beefing over nothing. He told the court that the hit on Young Dolph was ordered by someone much higher on the ladder, Anthony Big Jook Mims. And that name shook the room instantly because Big Jook wasn't just anybody, he was Yo Gotti's older brother and a major figure connected to CMG. When Smith said that on the stand, it felt like the entire case jumped into another dimension. The idea that the hit was tied to someone with that much weight in Memphis made everybody in the courtroom sit up straighter. Smith wasn't whispering or guessing, he was testifying under oath, pointing the finger upward, making it clear he believed this wasn't a small street mission at all. His claims made the whole situation feel way bigger than just two shooters in a car, like the hit was meant to send a message from people with real influence and real control. And once he said Anthony Big Jook Mims' name out loud, Memphis knew this trial wasn't just about the shooters, it was about the entire chain behind the scenes.
You know Big Jook?
Yeah, Jook was my boy.
Oh, that was your friend?
Yeah, that was my boy.
Well, in the trial, in the Justin Johnson Straight Drop trial, they say that Jook had a $100K hit on Dolph.
Smith testified that Big Jook put up a $100,000 bag on Young Dolph's head, 100 bands just to take out one of Memphis's biggest rap stars. That claim alone sent shockwaves through the courtroom because that ain't pocket change. That's a serious bounty meant for a serious target. According to Smith's version of events, this wasn't some sloppy street revenge. This was a structured job with money divided ahead of time. Smith told the court that the payout was supposed to be split up clean. Him and Justin Straight Drop Johnson were each supposed to get 40 racks for actually pulling the trigger, while Hernandez Govin, the alleged mastermind behind the entire setup, was supposed to get 20 bands for lining up the plan and coordinating every move. The way Smith described it, the whole operation sounded like it was handled with business-level precision, not random street chaos. But he didn't stop there. Smith claimed that he and Johnson even had multiple meetings with Big Jook in the weeks leading up to the murder, talking through how everything was supposed to go down. That detail hit hard because meetings mean planning, and planning means this wasn't some spur-of-the-moment situation. Then he took it even further, saying that after they carried out the hit, him and Johnson hopped on FaceTime with Big Jook to confirm the job was done. That one detail alone had the whole courtroom holding its breath. But Smith's testimony reached another level when he started talking about what happened after he got arrested in January 2022. He claimed somebody connected to CMG came through with $50,000 to cover his legal fees. He said he couldn't identify exactly who cut the check, but he was sure, 100% sure, that the money came from someone tied to CMG. That part of the testimony had the whole room buzzing because paying a man's legal fees after a murder charge isn't something small. It sends a message. If Smith's story is true, then this wasn't just one person calling shots or one person dropping money on a hit. It would mean there was a bigger web behind the scenes, bigger pockets, bigger influence, and possibly bigger intentions. Smith painted a picture that suggested this wasn't just about ordering a hit, it was about supporting, protecting, and shielding the people who carried it out. And if money from someone tied to CMG really went toward legal help, that opens the door to accusations way beyond the actual murder. Things like deeper involvement, potential obstruction, or accessory moves coming from people higher up the chain. This testimony didn't just heat up the case, it blew the entire room open with questions Memphis wasn't ready to ignore. Justin Johnson's defense attorney, Luke Evans, came out swinging hard and went straight at Cornelius Smith's credibility like he was trying to crack the whole case open in one move. Evans argued that Smith was bending the truth, twisting details, or even flat out making things up just to get a sweeter deal from the prosecution. He painted Smith as a man who would say whatever the state wanted as long as it meant shaving years off his sentence. Evans even brought up a letter Smith allegedly wrote from jail, a letter where Smith supposedly admitted he'd say anything to avoid spending the rest of his life locked up. If that letter is real, it hits like a bomb because it makes Smith look like someone who's willing to throw anybody under the bus just to walk free. That one piece of paper had the power to turn Smith into the most unreliable witness in the whole courtroom. And Evans didn't stop there. He highlighted every inconsistency he could find in Smith's story. The biggest one, the money. Smith testified he was promised $40,000 for helping carry out the murder, but he admitted under oath that he only ever got $800 total, $500 at first and another $300 later. That gap is wild, and Evans used it like a weapon, saying no real hitman would risk life in prison for money that couldn't even pay rent. But even with all those attacks on Smith's credibility, the jury wasn't buying the defense narrative. On September 26, 2024, the jury came back with the verdict. Justin Straight Drop Johnson was guilty on all counts: first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and being a felon with a weapon. The courtroom went silent for a moment because everyone knew this was the decision that would define the next 50 years of his life. The jurors had gone through everything: the surveillance footage, the phone records, the movements before and after the shooting, and of course, Smith's testimony, flaws and all. And after putting it all together, they were convinced Johnson played a direct role in taking Young Dolph's life. When the judge read the sentence, it hit cold: life in prison, which in Memphis means a minimum of 51 years before you can even think about parole. Johnson is around 30 years old right now, so if he somehow survives his entire sentence, he'd be about 81 years old before he even gets a chance to breathe free air again. In other words, his life outside a cell is done, finished, locked away forever. That reality crashed down on the courtroom instantly, because everybody there knew a life sentence in Memphis isn't symbolic, it's literal. But even with Justin Johnson's conviction giving Young Dolph's family and fans a piece of justice, it didn't close the story. It cracked it wider open. His guilty verdict sparked a whole new wave of questions about who else was moving behind the scenes, who else played a part, and whether the people Cornelius Smith named were going to end up under the spotlight next. If Cornelius Smith's testimony about Big Jook is legit, and the jury clearly thought it was credible enough to help convict Justin Johnson, then the streets started buzzing instantly with the real questions. Who else knew about this alleged plan? Who else was supposedly involved? And the loudest question echoing everywhere was this: did Yo Gotti know what his brother was allegedly plotting, or was he completely in the dark? The tension around that question was insane. Right now, there is no public evidence tying Yo Gotti himself to ordering, approving, or coordinating a hit of any kind. Every allegation that came up in court was aimed at Big Jook, not Gotti. But here's what keeps the whispers alive. Big Jook wasn't some random dude on the sidelines. He was Yo Gotti's blood brother, and he was deeply involved in CMG's business moves, which naturally makes people wonder how much he handled on his own. Then comes the part that shook the city. Big Jook was killed in Memphis in January 2024, just months before Smith's allegations about his supposed role in Dolph's death came out in court. His murder went down outside a Memphis restaurant during a repast after a funeral, and to this day, nobody has been arrested for that shooting. That mystery only made everything more intense. Some people in the streets whispered that it might have been retaliation from people connected to Paper Route Empire, but that's just speculation with zero proof behind it. Nothing official backs that theory up, and it's been floating around strictly as street talk. Still, the timing hits hard because Big Jook died before he could respond to anything Smith said later in court. His death basically erased someone who could have been a key witness, someone who could have denied the claims, explained his side, or even pointed toward people nobody knew about. Instead, the story lost one of the few people who might have had answers that could either shut everything down or blow the roof off the whole situation. Another major figure in the alleged setup was Hernandez Govan, who prosecutors accused of being the person who organized and coordinated the entire hit. Govan pleaded not guilty and stuck to his story the whole time. After going through the legal process, he was officially found not guilty in August 2025. That verdict shocked a lot of people because he was originally labeled as the alleged mastermind, but the court decided the evidence wasn't strong enough to convict him. Govan walking free raised even more questions because if he didn't plan it, and if Big Jook is gone, and if Yo Gotti isn't tied to anything publicly, then who, if anyone, was really behind what Smith claimed? The case suddenly had missing pieces, silent players, and unanswered questions that Memphis still talks about like the story isn't done yet. This part of the saga turned the courtroom into a maze of allegations, mysteries, speculation, and secrets that may never fully come out. And every name mentioned just kept adding more heat to the entire situation. Word around Memphis was that Hernandez Govan had strong ties to both Yo Gotti and Big Jook, with old social media posts and street chatter showing him deep inside the CMG circle. But just like with Gotti, there's no public evidence linking Govan directly to Yo Gotti when it comes to any murder plot. Every allegation that came out in court revolved around his alleged relationship with Big Jook, not Gotti himself. According to courtroom talk, Govan even turned down a plea deal from prosecutors. He chose to stand on his innocence and roll the dice with a jury instead of taking a deal that would have locked in guilt on paper. That move had the whole city watching because most people don't risk a jury trial unless they're fully ready to fight the charges. Then there's the fourth defendant, Jamarcus Johnson, Justin Johnson's half-brother, who took a plea deal back in June 2023. He admitted to accessory charges, telling prosecutors he helped the shooters get away after the murder and helped move the payment around. His testimony included text messages where Cornelius Smith was asking about Big Jook, which lined up with some of Smith's earlier claims about Big Jook's alleged involvement. But the same warning applies here. Jamarcus is cooperating to get a lighter sentence, so everything he says has to be taken with caution. When someone is facing serious time and trying to shave years off, everybody knows they might say what the prosecutors want to hear if it helps them breathe free air again. The courtroom was full of tension because the motives behind every testimony mattered. Beyond these four men facing charges, investigators also dug into possible connections between the murder and other people in Yo Gotti's orbit. One name that got a lot of attention was Black Youngsta, the CMG artist who was tied to that 2017 Charlotte shooting, a moment many people still connect to the Dolph CMG tensions. His name popping up again made the public pay close attention, even though investigators never charged him in this case. Then another detail made people raise eyebrows. Back in early 2022, right after Justin Johnson and Cornelius Smith were arrested, reports came out saying they hired Art Horn, a lawyer who previously represented both Yo Gotti and Black Youngsta. The second that news hit, the internet exploded with questions about whether CMG was somehow still connected to the situation. But eventually, Horn dropped them as clients, which added even more mystery to an already complicated case. The fact that a lawyer tied to CMG artists showed up even briefly only fueled speculation, even though nothing official ever tied CMG or its leadership to any part of the alleged murder plot. This chunk of the story kept the courtroom buzzing with theories, hints, and loose threads, because every new detail made the whole situation look bigger, messier, and way more layered than anyone expected. Art Horn publicly denied being hired by CMG or anyone acting on behalf of them. But even with that denial, the brief connection between the accused shooters and a lawyer who had previously worked with artists in Yo Gotti's circle added a whole new twist to an already messy situation. People were looking at every tiny detail like it might reveal something bigger, because this case had too many moving parts to ignore. And the big question that still hangs over everything, the question nobody can answer even after Justin Johnson's conviction, is this. If Big Jook really did order the hit on Young Dolph, was he acting alone? Was he handling street business without Yo Gotti knowing anything? Or was Yo Gotti aware of what was allegedly being planned? Was he part of the decision-making, or did he supposedly give the green light himself? These are the questions that keep the streets talking. Right now, there's no direct public evidence connecting Yo Gotti to any murder plot. Every allegation pointed toward Big Jook, not Gotti. But Big Jook's death in early 2024, months before he could ever be questioned in court, left a giant hole in the story. His passing created a situation where the person Smith accused can no longer speak, clarify, deny, or explain anything. And that silence means the full truth about who actually ordered Young Dolph's execution might never be known. Then there's the other unanswered part that still has Memphis debating nonstop. The claim that someone tied to CMG allegedly paid $50,000 toward Cornelius Smith's legal fees. Smith said it under oath, and if his claim is true, it raises serious questions that reach way beyond Big Jook acting like a rogue operator. The idea of someone stepping in to help cover a co-defendant's legal fight adds a heavy layer to everything. If that money really did come from someone connected to CMG, that would suggest a level of organizational involvement way deeper than one person dropping a bounty. It would imply either some kind of connection to the plot, or at the very least, an organized effort to protect the people accused of carrying it out. And if someone was willing to put up that kind of bread, it brings up another dangerous question. Were they trying to keep certain people quiet and stop them from cooperating with the feds? That possibility is what keeps this case burning hot, even now. Because if those legal fees were paid by someone inside the CMG circle, it changes the whole picture. It transforms the situation from an alleged personal move by Big Jook into something that might involve bigger players, bigger pockets, and bigger intentions than anyone expected. And that's why this whole murder saga still feels unfinished. The unanswered questions keep stacking, and every new detail only makes the story heavier, darker, and more tangled. The details about this alleged payment are frustratingly vague, which makes the whole situation even harder to pin down. Nothing about it is clean, nothing about it is confirmed in public, and every explanation opens the door to even more questions. And when you're dealing with Memphis's tight-knit street culture, there are a bunch of possible reasons why Cornelius Smith's legal fees might have been paid, if they were paid by anyone other than himself or his own circle. In Memphis, it isn't shocking for associates, homies, or even distant connections to come together to help someone facing serious time. That kind of support happens fast, especially when people worry the person might fold under pressure and start talking to authorities. So even if money moved around, that doesn't instantly prove some huge organizational conspiracy. It could have been people trying to keep someone steady so they wouldn't panic and start cooperating. Still, the mystery around the payment makes everything feel 10 times heavier. Another thing that keeps this whole case twisted is the massive difference between the alleged $100,000 bounty Cornelius Smith says Big Jook supposedly put on Young Dolph's head and the tiny $800 Smith admits he actually received. That gap is wild. We're talking about a promise of 100 bands versus less than 1% of that number actually landing in his hands. That isn't a small mistake. That's a huge discrepancy that makes everyone wonder what really went down. Smith claims he was told one thing, but ended up with pocket change. And that type of difference makes his story sound messy, confusing, or possibly only half true. It also raises the question of who really controlled the money, if the alleged bounty existed at all, and whether the shooters were being played by someone higher up or using the story to shift blame. Either way, the numbers don't match, the details don't line up, And every part of this payout story makes the whole situation feel even darker and more complicated than people originally thought. Now, if you're a street dude being told you're getting 40 racks to take out a target, and you actually go through with it, then only end up receiving $800, you'd be furious. You'd be ready to retaliate, distance yourself, or at the very least refuse to protect the people who allegedly shorted you. Nobody risked their entire life for $800, especially not in a high-profile situation like this one, but here's where it gets strange. Cornelius Smith still chose to cooperate with authorities and testify against Justin Johnson, even while claiming he got played on the payment. That choice alone raises a huge question. Why would the same people who allegedly ordered such a serious hit, who supposedly had access to $100,000 and who allegedly later dropped $50,000 on legal fees, short the shooters so heavily? That math doesn't make sense to anybody. One possible explanation is that the alleged $100,000 bounty was exaggerated, misunderstood, or never real in the first place. Another possibility is that the full payment was supposedly meant to come later, but never arrived because Big Jook passed away 2 years after the murder, long before any alleged payout could be completed. Or maybe the people funding the operation, if the operation even existed how Smith described it, didn't want to move large amounts of cash at once, because that could create a paper trail that investigators could follow. There's also the possibility that Smith misunderstood how the money was supposed to flow, or that the alleged 40 racks each was more talk than reality. The streets know that money promises get tossed around all the time, and the final payout rarely matches what was hyped up at the beginning. Whatever the real explanation is, the fact that Smith says he only got $800 for something this serious completely undermines the idea of a polished, well-funded, well-organized hit. It makes the whole situation sound sloppy, confusing, and filled with mixed messages instead of a high-level plot. If this were truly a CMG-sanctioned operation, the way rumors have tried to paint it, with a supposed 100 bands available for a bounty and another 50 bands allegedly available for legal help, then the payout to the shooters wouldn't make sense at all. This type of discrepancy forces everyone to question which parts of the story are solid and which parts might be stretched, misunderstood, or shaped to fit certain angles in court. Every detail Smith gave makes the whole situation feel less like a clean conspiracy and more like a chaotic puzzle with pieces that don't fit together right. If this really was a six-figure, high-level operation like Cornelius Smith described, you'd expect it to look way more professional. You'd expect the shooters to actually receive the money they were promised, the plan to be tight, and the whole thing to run like a serious mission instead of a messy gamble. But the sloppy, low-paid way Smith says it went down makes everything sound amateur and disorganized, which only raises more questions about whether Big Jook or CMG's involvement was ever as deep or official as Smith made it sound in court. Then comes the January 2024 murder of Big Jook, which added another tragic and complicated chapter to an already chaotic story. He was shot outside a Memphis restaurant during a repast, a moment that's supposed to be peaceful, while his mother was reportedly right there and had to watch her son get killed. Another person was hit too, and despite police offering a $4,000 reward, nobody has been arrested. The case is still wide open, still unsolved, and still haunting the city. Because Big Jook was targeted just 2 years after Young Dolph's murder, and right when all the rumors and whispers about his alleged role in the hit were floating around the streets, many people began speculating that his killing was some form of street justice. People whispered that the move might have come from individuals connected to Young Dolph or Paper Route Empire, but that talk has never been proven. It's street speculation, nothing more. And the truth behind that shooting is still a mystery. What Big Jook's death did accomplish, though, was wipe away what might have been the most important witness to understanding the full truth behind Young Dolph's murder. If he really ordered the hit, like Smith claimed, then he would have had answers nobody else could provide. He could have explained whether anyone above him knew about the plan, whether he discussed anything with his brother Yo Gotti, whether anyone inside CMG's leadership allegedly encouraged it, approved it, or even pushed back against it. His voice would have mattered because he was the one closest to the center of the storm. Instead, his death ended any chance of hearing his side.
You know how many people miss Dog and miss Big Jook? It fed a lot of people, but we just, we is on the outside looking in, we just think about that a couple days and whatever else on social media after that, but they families, they children, they brothers and they cousins, some people hurt for that.
If he acted alone, we'll never know why. If he acted with someone else's knowledge, we'll never know who. If he did anything out of loyalty to his brother or out of personal anger toward Dolph, those details died with him. The truth, whatever it was, left this world the moment he did, and that silence is what keeps the conspiracy talk alive even now. Big Jook's murder effectively shut down what could have been the key to unraveling the whole situation. He was the one person who could have confirmed or denied Smith's accusations, exposed holes in the story, or pointed fingers at people nobody was even thinking about. Without him, the case feels like a puzzle missing its biggest piece. And that gap keeps everyone debating who should really be held responsible for Young Dolph's death. And that leads to the bigger, darker question that Young Dolph's murder forces everybody to face: the deadly intersection of rap music, street culture, and real violence in the hood. Dolph wasn't the first superstar to get caught in that collision, and he won't be the last. But his story shows how fast things can spiral when ego, power, loyalty, music, and the streets crash into each other with no breaks. This tragedy didn't just shake Memphis, it exposed the thin line between fame and danger that so many artists walk every single day. The hip-hop world has always had a complicated love-hate relationship with beef. On one side, competition is part of the culture, always has been. Lyrical battles, rivalry, bragging rights, calling yourself the best, and dropping diss tracks to clap back at disrespect. All of that has shaped some of the most iconic moments in rap history. Those battles built legends, pushed artists to new levels, and created tracks people still replay today. But there's a darker side too, because when artists involved in a beef are also tied to real street life, old gang ties, or people who move in dangerous circles, things can flip from entertainment to disaster fast. The line between music and real-life violence starts getting blurred, and what begins as bars or marketing hype can suddenly spill into the streets with real consequences. That's when diss tracks turn into funerals and rap rivalries turn into actual tragedies. Young Dolph left behind children who now have to grow up without their father. It's a pain no family deserves to carry. Big Jook left behind relatives who watched their loved one lose his life in front of them. The people who allegedly carried out these crimes, the shooters, the planners, the ones who got pulled into this mess, are locked up or about to spend decades behind bars, with their own futures gone before they even reach middle age. That's another generation of lives wiped out by decisions made in the heat of pride and pressure. And for what? For pride, for respect, for a name, for rap territory in Memphis, for loyalty to a label, a crew, or a neighborhood. None of those reasons, or alleged reasons, come close to matching the price that got paid in blood, freedom, and heartbreak. Whatever benefits anyone thought they might gain from these moves ended up tiny compared to what was destroyed forever. The truth is, we may never truly know the complete story behind who should be held responsible for Young Dolph's death. Too many players are gone, too many details are cloudy, too many claims are unproven, and too many voices that mattered never got to speak. What we can say without question is that his murder was a devastating loss that shattered families, hurt a whole city, and shook the entire hip-hop community. Young Dolph wasn't just a rapper, he was a talented creator, a successful independent businessman, a man who gave back to his community, and someone who built his career on his own terms. He survived setbacks, outworked the odds, and turned himself into a symbol of independence and hustle. His death didn't just take a father away from his family, it took a leader away from Memphis, an inspiration away from artists, and a positive force away from the culture. And even though the legal system handed out sentences to the people found guilty of pulling the triggers, the bigger questions, the deepest ones, are still floating out there with no answers. Why was he really killed? Who, if anyone, actually ordered it? And were any powerful figures in Memphis's music scene involved, aware, or connected in ways the public never found out about? Those questions stay locked in darkness, unresolved, and painful. And that's what makes this tragedy feel even heavier for everyone who loved Young Dolph. When you look at everything that went down, the whispers, the losses, the unanswered questions, the court battles, the street rumors, it becomes clear that this saga wasn't just a Memphis story, it was a full-blown warning sign for the entire rap game. Young Dolph's legacy shines bright, but the shadows around his death still stretch long, and every new detail reminds people how fast success, loyalty, and danger can crash together in the world of hip-hop. The truth is, the streets might never reveal everything, and the industry might never admit what really happened behind closed doors. Too many voices are gone, too many stories don't line up, and too many people are scared to talk. But one thing stays solid. Dolph's impact is bigger than the chaos that tried to erase him, and his name still hits with power every time it's spoken. What comes next for Memphis, for CMG, for Paper Route Empire, for everyone connected to this storm? Only time will tell. The city is still watching, the fans still questioning, and the culture still grieving. And until the full truth comes to light, if it ever does, people will keep digging, keep debating, and keep demanding answers. If you want the real breakdowns, the raw updates, and the stories no one else is brave enough to touch, you already know where to be. Stay locked in with BarzBuzz because we're breaking down every twist, every leak, every courtroom moment, and every street whisper as this saga keeps unfolding. Tap in now, hit that follow, and don't miss what comes next. BarzBuzz is where the truth gets loud. If this saga had you shook, wait till you see what's next. You already know what it is. BarzBuzz got the real, raw, and unfiltered breakdowns. So don't forget to like, subscribe, drop a comment, and share this with someone who needs to catch up.